Hi, I'm Tony, and today I'll be talking about virtual versus in-person tabletop gaming on Tony Talks Tabletop. So I'll just be going in, giving a few good things about each thing, because as far as pros and cons go, I don't really think I need to focus too much on the cons because they can always be spun as a pro for the other side. So other than a few exceptions, maybe, and I'll get into that here in a bit. All right, so we're gonna start with the in-person gaming. So obviously you're there, you can see everybody, you can see their facial expressions, which as a, whoops, sorry about hitting the mic. As a forever DM, being able to read their facial expressions without them needing to roleplay their character is a big deal. I can say, or I can rather, the character I'm portraying can say or do something, and I can look at the players' reactions, their genuine reactions, to gauge how I should move forward with that scene. And they don't even have to say anything to me. Whereas, now, to be fair, when I do play virtually, I don't use a webcam. None of my players use webcams, so I might need to change that in the future. Just start using a webcam, and that maybe encourage my players to do so, but in all honesty, I feel like it's a bit much, and as a DM, I already have a lot to pay attention to, where if I'm having to pay attention to a certain part of the screen and then open up having multiple screens with different things opening up, whereas in person, it feels like if I have the books laid out in front of me, and I have the players in front of me, and we're rolling dice, I'm messing with the map, I'm messing with the minis, it never gets to a point where it feels overwhelming as the DM, and everything just feels like it's in its place. That being said, virtual gaming has some serious advantages, and we'll get into those in a few. Now, when it comes to maps, there are also advantages and disadvantages to both. I'll get to the virtual side soon, but for the physical gaming, you can have your map down, you can have terrain on top of it, have all your minis, and you, as the DM, can easily control everything. Everyone can see the entire board. So when you're pointing things out, it's easy. You gesture toward it with your human hands that you're used to using because you're human, your little fingies. You point toward the thing and they know what you're talking about. Virtually, there's ping tools, there's all sorts of stuff, but I find that some players, even you can have a ping tool that lights up an area, and you're like, over here, over here, over here, and they never realize where they're like, where? What? Where? And they're like scrolling to a different part of the map and going, it's right here, it's right here, and there's somehow going all around it. Some people aren't good with maps, so, it just is what it is. I find that in person, I've never really had that problem. That does lead me to the fact that I do enjoy painting minis. I enjoy making miniature terrain. I enjoy making props. I like to hand out props like letters and actual physical objects. I like to use physical coins instead of just keeping track of it on paper. So I'll give everybody a leather bag and they'll get coins, and that's how I keep track of everybody's currency through the adventure. It's in the bag. If they have it, they have it. If they don't, they don't. And I'll give special coins out that are marked for certain groups and stuff like that. It's really fun, and it's really immersive to have a lot of physical objects that are tied to the world that you're supposed to be experiencing in your hands, something tangible, and I find that helps a lot of players as well. Now, I don't have most of my my minis and all that. Actually, I don't have any of my minis right now, but I will soon. But as of right now, I do have a few props, so I'll give a few examples of some props and how I would use them in a game. So as for these props, I'm going to go from level of how hard it was for me to acquire or make the thing. So of course, starting with something that was acquired, the easiest way to do it, an oil lamp. I have some of these in Oregon, but I found it at a local place here. This is a great prop to hand your players, because if you give a bunch of D&D players an oil lamp, genies exist in the world. Wish is a thing. even if they rub the lamp and a genie doesn't come out, you might have just given them a mundane oil lamp that's literally just a light source, a flame source. They might think there's a genie in there, and they might spend so much time trying to figure out how to get the genie out. Do I have to say a magic word? Do I like, this is gonna occupy them. I would reward that. I wouldn't be so cruel to just like, here you go. And if they're obsessed with it, I would either just try to make it obvious to them that it's not magical, or just give them something, you know, even if it's just a little familiar. That would be a really cool little thing for, you know, you rub the lamp and a little mephit pops out. It's like, I thought I was gonna get a genie. What? Why did you expect a genie? Where's that coming from? Like that, I think that'd be pretty fun. Anyways, $10 at a shop. Boom, actual working oil lamp. Now this next one, it took a lot of time, but as far as the complexity level and tools needed, it didn't take that much. I built my first bookbinding jig to build this, and it's so loose because I didn't have a press. Well, I actually found out later I could have been using my my vise with a piece of wood, like over the vise, a smooth piece of wood. You can use that as a bookbinding vise. So there's ways to do it, but I wasn't so so prepared at the time. But I made this book, I bound it all myself, I tea-stained the pages, so it's all tea-stained pages. There's a quill in here I made this from the feather of one of my chickens that I raised. She was a fighter, and so I thought, you know, she was a very lively bird. She could make a very active quill, and I've used the hell out of it. I don't know if you can tell from how stained it is, but I just like to keep it in here. I haven't actually written anything in this, but it's a good prop to I like to put like preserved plants and stuff in here, a letter, you know, just fold stuff up, and you can make it so like a courier comes by and they're, oh, whatever, hands it to them. Or you just make it so a druid character uses this as their like spell book. As you can see, there's a bear paw on it. So this is just it's a good prop. It can be used for a lot of things. Now this final one, this took a lot. Now this, I wouldn't recommend that everybody get into metalworking and smithing just to supplement their D&D games, which is not why I got into smithing. It was actually for the farm. I started making like farm stuff and knives to give out to people. But anyways, this is my spear, or the spearhead. This is Langerfinger. It'd be really good. I've made a flat face on it because I want to etch something onto this. I'm not sure what yet. But you can imagine putting the emblem, you know, a house or something on this. I wouldn't recommend getting into smithing to supplement your D&D game, but let's say you're into leatherworking. You can make stuff to give to your players. A great one, honestly, is this is all carved, so you can see there's texture to it. You know, like I carved it and I stained it and all that. So you can carve and stain a map, a leather map that you can unroll on the table, and that's your campaign map. Honestly, personally, that's something that I plan to do at some point with my TTRPG. I want to make, at some point with my TTRPG, I want to make a physical copy, a leather copy of my world map, or just the island that I'm currently focusing on at least. And I mean, you can even just you can do trinkets where you can attach that to a key, and you attach like a little leather thing, you know, a little key holder with just, you know, tie it to the ring, or tie it to the key, sorry, and you carve and paint the symbol of a house onto that, you know, that leather patch. You can switch that out every time. You can use the same key. You can switch out the leather patches. There's a different key now. You know, there's a certain amount of buy-in from the players. They're not going to blame you for not having a whole collection of old-timey keys. Now, that is something that at some point, I do want to have just like a bucket of the really old, cool-looking keys that I can actually hand to my players, and like maybe even make like a little sketch of the key and jot down in my mind what it's to, and like just make a couple notes, and maybe even make multiple things that it could open. And honestly, if at any point the players are trying to use the key and it would be awesome for the story for that key to work at that time, then I would probably just let it work. As far as props go, they're really good at getting your players immersed in the world that you're trying to present them with. And immersion can be extremely important because that's going to be the main barrier to entry for your players really feeling like they're characters and really getting into their role play. If you can make them have buy-in by presenting them with artifacts from the world and they just start doing the voice, that's great. One thing that is most definitely much more fun in person is being a dice goblin. Everybody loves just holding a big pile of dice to, do your damage. So because you're limited by what you have physically in front of you a lot of the time when you're playing physically, there is already a curated experience. There's a certain sense you're going to get from the world, and it's easier to gauge what your players are going to come at you with versus if you're playing online, there's a much higher chance, at least from my personal experience, need to stop touching the mic. From my personal experience, there's a much higher chance that someone's going to come to me with a homebrew idea or some unearthed arcana class or whatever the case is. They're so excited about the game and they have so much at their fingertips, so many choices, that they want to do a bunch of them, which I understand. That's my whole problem with Pathfinder. Super hard for me to stop making so many characters and want to do so many when I barely get to be a player anyway. So those are my takeaways as far as pros, good things about in-person gaming. And now I'm going to start to talk a little bit about the virtual side of gaming. So one of the big advantages to virtual gaming is how easy it is to schedule. That's why, honestly, I've probably played, I know for a fact I've played a lot more virtual games than in-person games because it's easier to schedule. It doesn't fall through as often, and you can also just get people to commit to it much more easily because you're all just meeting in online lobby. You're not having to go over to someone's house. You're not having to, drive hours, or even in the case of some of my players, they don't even, and actually probably like about half my players don't even live in the same country as me. So that's just not something I can ask them to solve just to play a D&D game. But we can all hop into Discord, we can hop on Owlbear Rodeo, and in person, that's not the case. There are some friends that I wish I could be playing D&D with weekly, and I don't live in the same state or country as a lot of them. So, it just is what it is. That's a major point to virtual gaming. It's so easy to schedule, and there's just so many free resources. So let's get into that. You can get free like little minis, like little avatars. You can get so many free maps. You can, Owlbear Rodeo is a free virtual tabletop. Even if you don't want to play a free virtual tabletop like Owlbear Rodeo, there are options that aren't free, but you can play for free because they have a seats system where the DM has paid to host people. And so you take up one of his seats and he just hosts you. So you can even play some of the more exclusive, like premium versions of virtual tabletop gaming for free, really. Obviously, virtual tabletop gaming, it takes up a lot less space. So you can have all of your stuff, all of your character sheets. You're not going to lose your character sheets. That's a big plus. And in the case of props and handouts, you can give each player a copy. Now they can't physically touch it, but you can, if you're giving a letter out, you don't have to hand it to one player, you can send it to all of them. Or if you want to, you can just send it to the one player and have them read it. I do that pretty often, depending on if it's meant to be like a slow burn, and one person does the realization and then they have to, explain to the group, or they choose to just pass it around because they don't want to explain. Sometimes that's a good moment. Other times you just want to get the information out, so you just give everyone a copy so they don't have to spend too much time on it. Another advantage to online gaming is that because everybody is curating their own space, everyone can be in the comfort of their own home. They can have their own snacks. They're not going to touch your minis with their grubby little fingers. As a DM, it's very advantageous to have everyone gathered because you can present them with a certain amount of immersion, a certain amount of buy-in. So I find it's really hard to do that online. Maybe I'm just not, honestly, I'm just not as good of a DM online as I wish I was. I'm sure there's tools to help me, like some fancy virtual tabletops and stuff, but the amount of money I would need to get into some of those, it just, you know, I don't know, they just haven't caught my eye. That being said, I do like Tailspire, another free plug. It's just fun, building the maps on there. I don't have as much fun still as in person, but that's a really good way to do it if you're gonna play online and you're someone who likes to use minis and build terrain and stuff. That's a great way to do it. Another big advantage to playing D&D, well, tabletop games online, is that it saves space in your home. You don't have to store minis, you don't have to store maps, you don't have to store props. You know, it's on your hard drive. Whatever you want to keep on there is what you keep on there. You don't have to store character sheets, you don't have to figure out where they are, you don't have to, you know, someone's gonna lose them. I've had plenty of players lose character sheets. I had one player who every single time they showed up for a game, they had lost their character sheet. And the first couple times, it's like, oh, okay, we're just gonna have to kind of remake your character. And so we finish, and then they leave, and they come back, and they don't have the character sheet again. So I started keeping character sheets. I started as the DM, I'll collect them all, just like I collect the coins, because I use physical coins. Give me your character sheets and your coins, and I'll, you know, put them away, and that's what we'll use next time. So yeah, the virtual tabletop gaming can definitely save you space in your home, especially if you're as crazy as I am. I did say this was a plus for like in-person gaming, as far as like the limited choices, but I'm going to count it as a plus for the virtual gaming as well, where you have a plethora of choices. If you are a player that enjoys having a million options at your disposal and you like to make a super awesome character, virtual tabletop gaming, it's not necessarily going to be better for you, because you can always print that stuff out, you can always bring it to your in-person tabletop. But if you like having a plethora of options, all the supplements, all the class things from everything, virtual gaming might be your thing. Because of the fact that it's so easy to schedule games on a virtual tabletop, most of my games for the past few years have been played online. I would prefer to play in person for the grand majority of games that I participate in, but the fact is, it's not really feasible to ask a bunch of adults to gather around a table, you know, as often as you really need for a campaign. So even if you have a campaign that you've been playing physically, you might need to switch back and forth. You might need to do a session online. I've had that happen before. Not everyone can meet up this week. Can we do it in Discord, Theater of the Mind? All right, let's figure it out, you know? If your players are willing to meet you there, then as the DM, you have to realize that they enjoy your game enough that they're asking you, hey, can we play even though it's not gonna be like the full thing? We still wanna play. And that, you can only take that as a compliment. So even if you don't like doing that, guess what? Everyone's having fun, and that's all that really matters. As long as you're still having fun. I'm not saying like, grit your teeth, deal with it. But no, as long as everyone's still having fun, then you're doing it right. And that's all it is. Those are my thoughts on in-person versus virtual tabletop gaming. If you like this video, maybe give me a subscribe, like the video, comment down below. If you've watched the whole video, that helps so much for the channel. Thank you. So yeah, if you want to see more, give me a subscribe. I hope to see you in the future. Have a good day. Oh, right. Maybe, I think this video, YouTube thinks you would like, and then this one is like one of my playlists. Click something if you would. Anyways, have a good day.